He thought he planned the perfect murder, but one tiny mistake unraveled everything. Shauna Tayefi, a 46-year-old cocktail waitress and devoted mother, had worked her graveyard shift on a late September night in 2012 and returned to her Summerlin, Las Vegas apartment exhausted, unaware that what awaited her would shock an entire city as one of the most chilling contract killings in recent memory. And, as investigators later revealed, her estranged husband, former firefighter George Tayefi, a West Point graduate with a clean record, had meticulously plotted her death, secretly enlisting a homeless man he knew from odd jobs, Noel Greyhound Stevens, with a promise of cash and a whispered plan to make Shauna disappear forever. The morning after Shauna's brutal killing, beaten with a hammer so savagely that the tool broke and her fingerprints showed she fought desperately for her life, George called 911 with staged horror in his voice, claiming to have found his wife dead and bloody on the floor, leading police first to treat it as a tragic home invasion and a random crime, until a tip from a concerned acquaintance of Stevens redirected the investigation into something far darker, revealing that George and Stevens had been in frequent contact, phone records showing scores of calls, and were even seen together on surveillance video weeks before the murder, buying dark clothing, gloves, a knife, and the hammer later identified as the murder weapon. And detectives pieced together that Shauna's estranged marriage, which she had bravely tried to end, was at the heart of the motive, with friends telling reporters that George had become controlling and possessive, upset over her decision to separate and fearful that a divorce would cost him financially. And though George had a solid alibi, he was at the fire station on duty that night and even had their 8-year-old daughter with him when he discovered Shauna's body. The mounting physical evidence told a different story. From the key to Shauna's apartment found near Stevens' camp to blood-stained clothing linking the killer to the scene. And as police circled in, George's desperation became evident when he rammed his truck into a concrete barrier at high speed in what prosecutors later argued was a suicide attempt to escape the consequences. Injuries from the crash leading to his hospitalization and eventual arrest, where he was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, burglary, robbery, and other counts. And Stevens, facing his own charges, became a key witness in the case, admitting under oath that George had promised him payment to carry out the killing. Details that prosecutors used relentlessly at trial to portray a cold, calculated plot rather than a spontaneous act of violence against a stranger. The courtroom became the final battleground for a story that blurred public perceptions of heroism and evil, as George's defense counsel tried to discredit Stevens as an unreliable, unstable man motivated by a plea deal. But jurors were shown phone records, purchase receipts, and surveillance footage that tied the former firefighter irrevocably to the conspiracy. And Shauna's friends and family, clad in her favorite color pink as a tribute to her memory, listened as prosecutors painted a portrait of a loving woman trapped in a deteriorating marriage who tried to escape a husband she described as controlling, only to be ambushed in the place she should have felt safest. After days of testimony and deliberation, the jury convicted George of all counts, including first-degree murder, and the judge later sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus decades on additional charges, a sentence prosecutors called justice for a murder that once seemed capable of being the perfect crime, and a stark reminder that even the most calculated plots can crumble under the weight of forensic evidence, eyewitness accounts, and the relentless pursuit of investigators who refused to let Shauna's death be written off as a mere tragedy. A decision that brought a measure of closure to her daughter and loved ones, and etched this case into the annals of true crime history.